Hi, my name's Ben Kane. I'm the architect of Abbott House, and welcome to the virtual tour for Sustainable House Day. Abbott House in Scarborough is a special house. It provides an opportunity to show that you can actually achieve a high performance home and good architecture for an affordable rate. This was significantly less expensive than the first passive house that was built in Western Australia, and it actually came in quite affordably when you compare it to other architect design homes. So we're hoping that this is a case study for to show people that we can actually achieve for a modest budget in Perth. The site for Abbott House is located off a laneway in Scarborough. It's actually just a subdivided portion of a rear backyard. It's a really tight site. It's only 213 square metres, and it's constrained in all directions. The client for Abbott House was a young building industry professional. He provided a very detailed brief for us, and I pulled out the basic elements that essentially it had to be a really affordable, high performance home. He provided tons of reference imagery, but the one that really sang out to me was the Kaufman House by Richard Neutra. It's a mid-century project in Southern California, and it kind of was appropriate for the climate of Western Australia, and it provided the opportunity to kind of play with some really simple geometric forms and roofs and deep overhangs that was appropriate to our climate. Here's some images of the finished project. Here you can see it from the laneway. It's a very compact building envelope with the top floor overhanging the bottom floor to create some shade. We also provided a solid wall to create an entrance to the courtyard, which is actually the front door. And that solid wall provides a bit of a fortification and a bit of a buffer to the laneway. When the project started, it was never intended to be built to the passive house standard. That's something that sort of evolved later as the builder got involved, and we realized that it was something that was actually possible. But we had some really simple strategies and goals to aim for in the design. The key ones are listed here. All the typical things to do with passive house, like high levels of insulation, double glazing. We decided to do it with timber frame construction, which is actually very unusual in Perth, but it really does provide a good renewable outcome with high levels of insulation. But mainly, the main benefit of this design is it's just a really compact footprint. And a really compact footprint makes for a more affordable home, but it also makes the house more high performance by minimizing opportunities for heat loss and heat gain. This is a diagrammatic cross-section of the design. You can see that we've located the parking in the shade of the northern neighbour. And what we've done is we've opened that up completely so that that becomes also dual use space for an alfresco and extends the visible depth of the outdoor living space on such a small block. By stacking the two volumes and pushing the top volume forward, we've minimized the amount of overshadowing on our southern neighbour, but at the same time we've created an opportunity for shading to the living space, and that is basically the essential components of solar passive design. This slide is really just pointing out the key attributes of the space. So you see what I mean by the creating that sort of the depth and that dimension from north to south to really connect the indoor space with the courtyard, but all the way through to the back of the carport wall. And it's really important that without like a fully covered alfresco area, that the carport can actually do double duty as an outdoor living space, and you could have a ping pong table set up there or a long table for lunch or even some couches and sofas or something like that. It just provides another opportunity for play or outdoor living. Here's some external views of the house from both outside and inside the courtyard. You can see that inside the courtyard, the shading's doing its job. This was taken in basically midsummer, so you can see the nice shade created along the glass line. And also the pool was an idea presented by the landscape architect just to help cool down such a small space. A couple of images of the interior and the courtyard, and you can see basically the open plan living with full height glazing. Really important to to flood the place with lots of light, but to make the most of the winter sun when it's available, and the summer sun is excluded through shading. This is a diagram of the mechanical ventilation and heat recovery system as it applies to Abbott House. So as I mentioned, the unit sits in a cupboard inside the laundry. Fresh air comes in and is directed to living spaces. So those living spaces are dining and living and study and bedrooms. Meanwhile, stale, warm or humid air is removed from bathrooms and kitchen and storage, and that humid, stale air, as it leaves the building, any heat or coolness that's inherent in that stale air gets transferred to the fresh air coming in. And it does this incredibly efficiently so that you minimize the amount of warmth or coolness that you're actually losing by ventilating the building. Here's some of the key attributes to do with how we achieved Passive House for a budget. Obviously, the air tightness is required for Passive House, and there were 2 tests. The final test came in under the required 0.6 air changes per hour. The timber framing was really very important. We basically use a standard stud section of 90 millimeters, and we're able to fill that full of insulation. And the last diagram shows in detail how the building is actually put together, with the insulation in the structural zone, and then with cavities, or battened out cavities, both internal and external, with an airtight membrane internally and the vapor permeable membrane externally. A key aspect of building to Passive House standard, particularly with a timber framed home, is the membranes that you use. So a company called ProClima has some specialized products for that. The product they use internally is called Intello, and it's quite a durable membrane that's fully taped and sealed from the junction with the slab, and then again at the cornice, and then up through the roof, and then back down again. So it's a fully taped membrane. And then externally, we use a vapor permeable membrane that's kind of like a Gore-Tex jacket. It's very good at being windproof and weatherproof, but it also allows vapor to escape from the structure. And that's really important for the life of the building, because you want to prevent water getting in. You're providing this fantastic raincoat for your building structure, but any moisture that occurs inside the structure itself has a path to getting out. What you can see here on the right hand side is actually the vertical battens externally that hold the cladding, and those vertical battens allow number one, an air gap between the cladding and the membrane, but also any water that may get between the cladding and the structure can actually just run straight down. The air gap is super important too, because it allows that the space behind the cladding to breathe, and it allows cool air to enter at the bottom and warm air to escape at the top. And we design and detail the structure to allow that to happen. Here's some construction images. So you can see we've got some really nice big stacking sliding doors to the outdoor area, and these are frames by Rehau, and they're actually manufactured and fabricated in China and sent as complete units in a container. So a full container load of windows was delivered to site, and they were installed by the builder. One of the great myths of Passive House is that you're expected to live in them with closed windows all the time, and that's not actually the case. If you've got really nice weather like we do in Perth, probably 6 months of the year, you can actually open up your windows. So, and it's very common for people to want to have, full width opening sliding doors. And the same applies for this house. The client really wanted to have that connection between inside and out. And these lift and slide doors are fantastic because they are big, heavy doors, but the mechanism inside the frame actually physically lifts the frame or the sash off the frame and makes it much lighter and more maneuverable. So you can move these big, heavy panels. Externally, we've got iron ash timber cladding, which is left untreated, and over time that will silver off. But yes, we have double glazing all throughout the house. Passive House can be a bit of a shock to clients who are used to cooking with gas and perhaps not prepared to give it up. But actually, for all of our houses, we try to we do eliminate gas connections completely. So electricity is used to power the hot water and the oven and the cooktop. Induction's actually a really great way of cooking. You've got a lot more control over the cooking surface, the cooking temperatures than you do with gas. This kitchen in particular opted to have the sink on the back wall and then put the cooktop in the island. Common problem with that is you often see these really big, bulky and ugly range hoods hovering over the kitchen island. But this particular model with a downdraft exhaust is a lot neater and simpler, and it's actually very effective. The fan unit is located inside the island itself, so it's actually fairly quiet compared to an overhead range hood. And it's very effective at removing steam and vapor from cooking. So that's a highly recommended product. But since the house was built, there's been some different sorts of pop-up recirculating range hoods have come out that may well be a more cost-effective solution than an all-in-one cooktop like this. Living spaces are nice and open, full of light, got full height windows, 2.7 meter ceilings. It's very modern but also timeless. Always try to go with timeless finishes, particularly things you can't change. And those things you can't change are things like countertops and tiles, flooring and things like that. Thank you for visiting this virtual tour of Abbott House. I hope you get to drive past the house, or maybe we can open it up again sometime in the future. In the meantime, we have many new houses being built in Perth. And if you're considering a new home in Perth, feel free to contact me and I'd be happy to give you a walking tour of a house that's either complete or under construction.